Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Nick Saban Show presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm Chris Stewart, filling in for Eli once again this week. So glad to have you with us, and another fantastic crowd here at Baumhauer's Victory Grill. And as you may guess, the head coach has just made his way in, but we're going to say hello first to the sports director at CBS 42, Chris Breece, kind enough to join us here on the show and be the media guest for tonight. Chris, good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for having me on. This is going to be fun tonight. Yeah, you go ahead, because I'm sure you want to say something about what I'm about to say.
Here's the deal as we welcome in Coach Nick Saban. Coach, let me just tell you out of the gate, don't be offended if Chris, not me, Chris, but this Chris, goes tearing off out of here in the middle of the show.
That's what I was going to say.
Why? Tell him why.
It's not you, it's me. My wife is 41 weeks pregnant. And before I get pegged as a terrible father and husband, when Josh Maxson texted me about this yesterday, I said, this isn't going to work. My wife said, oh, go do it. And I said, are you sure? And she says, absolutely. And when she says it, she means it. She's not one of those. And so, yeah, if we have a child tonight, I'm going to have to leave, obviously. And I know you would understand.
Yeah, but I don't even think you should be here. I mean, why would you?
You're not supposed to say that, because if something happens, then you're right.
No, well, relationships are really, really important, and, you got to kind of give more than you take. Does that make sense?
Yeah. My first question to you tonight, the most important question, was not going to be about Bryce Young. It was going to be about, between now and the time he's born, whenever that is, what do I do to make sure I don't upset my wife and make her angry?
Hang on. Go ahead.
Speaking from examples, hopefully.
Well, I don't think you really have to prove anything. You just do what you do, and, maybe that will help your relationship in a lot of ways. Relationship building is, like I said, you got to give more than you take. You got to help more than you receive. So if you just keep that up, I think you should be fine.
I'm trying to do that. Is that agreeable?
Miss Terry says stay out of the way. Good advice.
Good advice. Thank you.
Coach, congratulations on last week. I know that's well past in the rearview mirror, but another special week ahead with the matchup with Tennessee.
Yeah, boy, this is a great opportunity for our players. They've got a really good team, one of the best offensive teams in the country. I think they're number one in total offense or whatever. Their defense plays pretty well, tough to run against. This is a really, really good team. They got a really good quarterback. They've got good skill guys on offense. But, you've heard me say this before. I always worry about our team, what our team does, and I think we learned a lot in last week's game because we did a lot to help the other team. And, I always talk about competitive maturity. You do the things to avoid losing before you can think about winning. We didn't do that very well in the last game. We had a lot of self-indulgent behavior, a couple personal fouls that gave the other team good field position. Self-indulgent behavior is, I feel like doing it, so I'm going to do it. It's not about what's best for you or what creates value for you or how it hurts the team or anything like that. The turnovers were, critical in the game. They scored 17 points off of turnovers. So I'm just saying that not taking advantage of red area opportunities, those are all the kind of things that can get you beat before you can ever think about winning. So when I say our players learned a lot from the last game, I think that learning those lessons will be helpful, in the future of us understanding that the priority has to be doing things right. Used to be, we only had a priority. Priority was singular. Now it's like priorities. We got all these priorities. But really, you got to have one priority. And that's to be, the best player that you can be all the time. That's what creates value for you. We want to be the best team we can be all the time. Your best is required, like in games like this. But really, to be ready to play in games like this, you got to do your best every day because it's got to be a habit. You got to develop habits that are going to create opportunities that when you go out there and play, you're not really concerned about anything but focusing on what you got to do, playing fast, playing hard, being aggressive. So the priority, I call it being a champion. We got to sign up, a pyramid of success, in our building, and you've heard me talk about this many times before, but it's about being a champion. So that's your priority. That's your number one thing. Now, to buy into the principles and values of the organization, respect those, trust those, respect and trust the relationships that you have with other players on the team, be positive in your work so you affect other people in a positive way, be responsible and accountable to do your job. So we can rely on you, we can trust you. And then you have the work ethic and perseverance and ability to overcome adversity and all the things that come with competitive challenges so that you have an opportunity to be a champion. I mean, that's what it's all about. And if you don't have those characteristics, it's going to be hard for you to be successful on a consistent basis. So that's really what we've been trying to get our team to really, sort of focus on, and that has to be the priority. So all these other things, self-indulgent behavior, guy pushes me, so I feel like hitting him back. You get a 15-yard penalty, takes us out of field goal range. All right, we score a touchdown, you're dogging a guy, so we get a 15-yard penalty, all right, and that gives them good field position. So just all these things are not the kind of things that I think a classy team that has the kind of priorities to be a champion, we can't do those things. We got to learn from these things and do better.
I think every fan generally looks at every score and says, okay, how much did we win by? That's how I feel about my team this week. You talk about all this championship culture and wanting to be a champion. I would imagine that these close games are good for your team. I know you want to win by as much as you can every week. Even Arkansas 2 weeks ago, you guys had to run the ball to win. Texas and Texas A&M come down to one play. I would like to think that you enjoy seeing your guys become champions in moments like that because we all know in the playoffs you're going to need something like that. So I would like to think that you think that's a good thing you guys can do that.
Well, I have a tremendous amount of respect and appreciation and gratitude that our team has the resiliency, to win games like that. But as a coach, I don't look at, like you said, fans look at how much did we win by. I don't look at that at all. Did we play up to our capabilities? Is every player on the team playing to his capabilities? Are we doing the things that we need to do to play winning football at every position? Not making mental errors, not running routes the right way, not reading things right if we're playing quarterback, making mental errors on defense, missing tackles, turning the ball over, not getting turnovers. All those things contribute to having success. So to what standard and what level are we doing those things? I mean, that's the true, how good can your team be and how close are you getting your team to be that good? To me, that's what coaching is to me. Whether you win or lose, you still have to look at how do we do things. All right, so, and I guess I'm happy that we won the game. I don't want you to think I'm not happy that we won the game. I'm not happy that we gave the other team a lot of opportunities that could have cost us the game, that were self-inflicted wounds that we created for ourselves, that if we continue to do that, we're not going to be able to win at some point in time. That's the issue. That's what needs to get corrected. That's the way I evaluate things. And, are you being the best that you can be? Are you performing at your best when your best is required? And are you doing it on a consistent basis? And you got to practice that way. You got to develop those habits. You got to have that kind of competitive character. And that's important. That's what we work on. That's what we try to build in all of our players so that they're going to go out there and be able to do these things on a consistent basis. And they have to understand how important that is.
Coach, you know the drill. Tonight's first question brought to us by Alabama 811. Always contact 811 before you dig to know what's below. Call 811 or visit al811.com. Pee Wee from Grand Bay has made that first call again. Good evening, Pee Wee.
Good evening, Chris. Coach, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Pee Wee. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, Coach, this week, you know, we're obviously going into a very hostile environment at Tennessee. You know, Texas was loud, but I believe that this game they will be even louder. And, you know, so it's going to take a lot of concentration, a lot of good focus and all of that. And a lot of that's going to come on our center. So if you would you speak about how well Seth has progressed this year to get to the point that where he is and how he is going to handle this game?
Yeah, well, Seth and Darian Dalcourt both have played really well at center. Those two guys are, you know, they're great character people. They prepare for the game well. They're both very bright and smart. They both have leadership qualities, and you know, when both have had to play for each other because of injury, and we're very fortunate to have two guys that you consider starters, you know, at that position without any real drop-off in performance or ability to lead and make line calls and be smart and get the people around you to play better, which those guys do a good job of. So, you know, Seth has done an outstanding job when he's in there. I don't think that, you know, last week we didn't do a great job of controlling the line of scrimmage on a consistent basis. You know, we had a lot of big little last week, you know, bad play, big play. And we need to get a little more consistent. Although A&M has a really good front, and we really had a hard time blocking their two inside guys on a consistent basis. So, but anyway, I'm pleased with those two guys. That's not an issue. I just hope they both can stay healthy.
Pee Wee, thanks for the call as always. Coach, we're going to stay on the phones, go to Florence, Alabama. Harrison, you're next up with Coach Saban.
Hey, Chris, how you doing? Coach, how are you?
Good, Harrison. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for taking my call. I'm just really excited about the game this weekend. I was at the Texas A&M game last Saturday. Heck of an atmosphere, had a blast. And I'll be watching from home this weekend. And been reading a lot of articles about Tennessee and how good they are this year. I've watched them play a couple of times, and I've heard a lot about their offense, but I was wondering, Coach, when you look at their defense, you know, what stands out to you about their defense, and what do we need to be ready for on Saturday?
Yeah, well, their defense is much improved as well. They're like one of the leading teams in the country in terms of rush defense, one of the best teams in the SEC. And now they're quick, and they do a lot of stunning. They do a lot of moving up front. They do a lot of pressuring. So I think the number one thing is you got to be able to get a hat on the hat when you run it. You're able to block their movements. All right, when we do pass the ball, we got to do a good job in protection because they are going to pressure us quite a bit. And, you know, that philosophy, when you have that philosophy, you know, sometimes it puts a lot of pressure on the back end, which is the secondary people. And they have good players in the secondary. But I think that, you know, that's one of the things that if you can take care of them up front, you might have an opportunity to make some plays. You're going to have to. I think that's what you have to do. I think when you play a team like this, you have to have the philosophy that you have to score points because they're going to play fast. They're very aggressive on offense. They're averaging like 47 points a game. So I don't think this is going to be a 10-9 game is what I'm trying to say. So you got to be able to score points on offense, and you got to be able to open it up and make plays down the field, which means it starts with how you block their front. If you can block their front, then you got a chance to do that.
All right. Thank you for the call, Harrison, on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline. 877-202-BAMA is the number to call if you'd like to be a part of Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show here tonight from Tuscaloosa. We're back with more from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in just a moment on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
First and 10 from the Aggie 35. Milroe looking across the middle. Catch made. Burton breaks the tackle. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Alabama. 35 yards. Milroe finds Burton. Broke a tackle. Found Pater. And Bama leads it again.
Our refreshing Bama highlights are presented by Yellowhammer Brewing Company, brewed locally in Alabama and served to fans across the Southeast. Chris Breece, CBS 42, is our media guest for the evening. I'm Chris Stewart, of course, filling in for Eli Gold again this week. Coach Nick Saban with a lot of folks here in person at Baumhower's Victory Grill. And do want to say to people in-house, if you got a question, we've got a microphone around. We'll get one from the audience in just a few moments. But as Coach Saban joins us back here at Baumhower's Victory Grill, we're going to have our first question of the night from AL.com. It's the Nick Saban Show thread from AL.com. And, Coach, this question is from Herb in Peachtree City, Georgia. And Herb says, hey, Coach, I was excited to see Will Dallas and Chris Braswell on the field at the same time last week. Where did the name Cheetah Package come from? I love it. Roll Tide.
Okay, well, I got a question for you.
Okay.
How did everybody find out what we call it?
2022.
Players.
Is that where it came from?
Yes, sir.
Because, you know, we have a whole bunch of other names for different alignments and different personnel groups.
Mm-hmm. That wasn't supposed to get out, huh?
I don't know. I just wondered how that happened. I don't really know.
I didn't do it.
Somebody will tell you one of these days, I promise.
But anyway, these things that we do, you can do on third down. So, you know, and every team has a break point on third down. Like if it's third down and 4, they go 82% pass. If it's third down and 6, it goes up to, 92% pass. So you don't really have to worry that much about the run. All right, so you're going to put the best pass rushers you have on the field, and you're going to do the best that you can to sort of create issues for their protection, whatever their protection is, whatever games you have to run, however you pop people. And, I've been through this before with pass protections. Some people have 5-man protection, some people have 6-man protection, some people have 7-man protection, some people have all 3. And you try to figure out, okay, the center's going to block this guy over here, and the back's going to block that guy over there, or the back's going to free release. So we're going to make the center go over here and then bring more guys over here than they can block. All right, that's kind of how you put pressure on the quarterback, or what you try to do.
Okay. So
the better the guys that you have doing that, so we have 3 guys that I think, outside backer-wise, that are really good rushers. Will, Dallas, and Braz. Those 3 guys are all really good rushers. So we try to put them in the game when we can, but it has to be a passing situation. We only have 1 defensive lineman in the game and 4 linebackers. All right, when we get into any of these packages, and I'm not naming all the other ones. Everybody knows that one. All right, so but you have to create the passing situations to put them in the game. It's not like you can play first and second down with those guys in the game, because if they run the ball, you're going to be a little light in the britches, So if you can create the right situations to put them in the game, we'll certainly do it. Now, what you have to guard against is some of these teams, fastball teams like Tennessee, they're going to go fast on third down. So sometimes you can't sub. You can't put people in the game. You can't take them out of the game. And if you get them in the game and they make a first down and go fast, you can't get them out of the game.
Right.
All right, so you have to be careful, from an administrative standpoint, how you manage that. And so we'll do the best we can to put pressure and affect the quarterback, because I think that's always a big part of the game. Always a big part of the game. Now, you don't do it just with the rush. You do it with the coverage. You do it with how you disguise the coverages. All those things are really big factors in, how you influence people. And the biggest time that you can do it is on third down, when you know they're in a passing situation.
All right, Coach, we got a question from young man right here. He's got a question. If you would say your name, sir, and give your question to Coach.
My name is Landon Bradley. I play safety for my football team back at Georgia. I want to know how you think your safeties have progressed this year.
He's asking about the safeties, Coach. He plays safety on his team in Georgia, and he's wanting to know how your safeties are doing and getting better.
Yeah, well, I think 2 really good players, Jordan Battle and DeMarco Helms. Both of those guys have been 3-year starters here. Played a lot of football, very experienced, very bright guys, have great understanding of the system. They're physical, they're tough, they're pretty good cover guys. So, and I think, both those guys have a future playing football at the next level. Now, past that, Brian Branch, who is also a safety, but he always plays star. That's our fifth defensive back. And then Malachi is also a star, and he plays star when we have 6 defensive backs, and Brian Branch plays money. The money position is the 5th or 6th defensive back. It's nickel or dime. If it's dime, it's 6 defensive backs. If it's nickel, it's 5. All right, so, and all those guys, to me, all 4 of those guys are really, really good players. And that's probably been one of the things that have helped us improve some on defense, and it'll be important that they play well, because when you play safety, you have to do 2 things. You have to be able to be physical enough to fit the runs and tackle, all right, but then you also have to be able to cover and play pass defense in the deep part of the field as well as man-to-man. So I'm going to tell you, you're a safety, 3 critical factors of playing defensive back. You got to judge the ball in the deep part of the field. You got to be able to tackle. You got to be able to play man-to-man. So you do those things, and I'm going to come and see you one of these days.
Coach, watching you interact with that young man reminds me, your camps are extremely popular and successful, as people would expect, given the success of Alabama's program. But you love to be hands-on with those camps and teach the young kids, his age and younger, the game, don't you?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I love coaching. I love teaching. You know, I've said it many times before to recruits. I'd probably, if I had a choice, just as soon be the secondary coach as the head coach. Just doesn't pay as well.
I understand. I've read that.
All right, so, and, you know, can't afford Miss Terry on the secondary coach's salary.
Tried it for a while. Worked for quite a while. Coach, let's go back to the phones. Jay's in Birmingham. How you doing, Jay?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Good evening, y'all. Coach, I'm going to ask you a question about maybe a rules change. When the team has the ball at the 2-yard line and the fans are screaming and everything, trying to false start the offense. Well, when they do, they only move the ball back 1 yard. Well, if it happens again, you can't really move the ball back that far, and they still keep the down. Would you like to see losing a down for each false start at the 2?
You mean a team is on the 2-yard line coming out? Is that your question?
Right, correct.
Backed up. So they make a false start, and they only get a 1-yard penalty. Yeah, I don't think that that will ever change, that they would ever give you a penalty that would actually give you a score. You get penalized back to the 1-yard line, you enhance the chances of getting a safety for the defense if you can get a tackle for a loss. So I understand your point. I think that sometimes, just like in our game last week, when you look at it the other way, and we get pass interference in the end zone after we intercept a pass, think the game's over, and now the ball goes all the way to the 2-yard line. That's a pretty severe penalty. When sometimes the pass interference may be flagrant, it may not be flagrant, but I always wondered about that part of it, is why don't we just make that penalty half the distance to the goal line like every other penalty is, you know, in a situation like that. But it is what it is, but I don't think they'll ever change to where you could get a penalty and back a team up and actually give the other team points because of a penalty.
He talked about the 2-yard line. That 2-yard line play the other way at the end of the game on Saturday. I watched your video of your recap after the game, and you had the video board up and you were describing how the defense played that play. My best friends and I are huge college football fans, and they're big Big Ten fans. And I said, guys, look at this clip. This is why Alabama's defense is so good. You had everything covered on every basis. But that also makes me wonder, is there ever anything in the back of your mind that makes you think, oh, shoot, did we not think about this? Did we not think about that? Like, does that happen?
Yeah, well, really, but we played what we played in that situation because when they scored a touchdown earlier in the game, they actually, we were playing inside out on people, and like trapping in the flat, and they ran the number 3 receiver in trips ran an out route, and the trap guy was too far away, so they scored. So we were ready to call that again, and I called timeout. All right, and I said, let's talk about this. If we change the leverage on them, all right, and we're going to play them outside in and have, I know you don't like it, but we call them rats. All right, when you don't have a man-to-man and you can cut out inside out on a guy, you're a rat. All right, so we had 2 rats on both sides, so we have leverage on one side and rat on the other. And I said, I think we need to play that. So that's
good call.
Players did a good job of playing it, and I think that's probably one of the things that is most overrated, I think, in sports is, people criticize calls. You didn't use the guy right, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right. But really what it comes down to more often than not is execution. Did you execute what you did correctly? And our players executed that very well. And in a difficult situation in the game, they had enough poise and composure to go out there and do it exactly like it was supposed to be done, and everybody did it, and we had success on the play. So, but that's true almost of every play in the game. If you execute it properly and everybody does what they're supposed to do, you usually have a successful play.
Can you answer this for me? Because on our air after the game, we broadcast live press conferences. Jimbo was getting hounded about the play call. You mentioned execution. Is it fair to hound him for that play call, or is that Alabama's defense covering all their bases?
Well, look, it goes with the territory. Whatever you call that works, like you say what we did on defense, was a good call. It was a good call because it worked.
Because they executed it.
Yeah, well, but anything that doesn't work in a situation like that, everybody thinks is a bad call.
Right.
Does that make sense? Now, I can't tell you exactly what Jimbo was coaching his players to do on that play, and did they do it like he wanted it done. I can't answer that question. So I can't tell you what their execution was. But, that's a play that gets called a lot in that situation, and I'm not saying that in a negative way because it is a difficult play to defend if you run it correctly.
Coach Nick Saban, of course, with us here at Baumhauer's Victory Grill, and will continue to do so for the next half hour on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
From the 29, Milroe looking, 3rd and long, swings it out, catch made, Brooks, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Ja'Cory Brooks, finding the house, 29 yards, Milroe dumped it off, Brooks took it the rest of the way, and Alabama extends its lead now to 23-14.
Our second question of the night here on the Nick Saban Show thread at AL.com is from Jackie in Evergreen, Alabama. Before we give Coach that question, we'll tell you again, I'm Chris Stewart filling in for Eli Gold. Chris Breece, sports director at CBS 42, kind enough to join us as the media guest for tonight's program. And Coach Nick Saban signing a few autographs here on stage, getting ready. And Coach, again, the question is from Jackie in Evergreen, who says, hey, Coach, it seems like there are more pass interference penalties called each year in college football and the NFL. Are they calling it differently than they have in the past? Keep up the great work and roll tide, and that's rather fitting because not only did Jackie and Evergreen have that question, so did Terry from the front row about pass interference. She knows a lot we don't know, but go ahead.
Well, I think that one of the things that have created this, and I've oftentimes talked to our director of officials in the SEC and the national coordinator, is the back shoulder throw. It used to be you used to teach guys to just play the ball. You're in position, you're in phase with the guy, you just become the receiver and you play the ball. All right, but now when you get in position and you have the receiver cut off, the quarterback throws the ball to the back shoulder. And I don't know if everybody knows what I mean by that, but if you're running down the field and then you turn and you catch the ball behind you, that's back shoulder. Well, you have to teach the defensive player now if I look over my inside shoulder to play the ball and they throw the ball to the back shoulder, I'm going to keep running and the guy's going to catch the ball. And I may not even be in position to tackle. So now what you have to coach a guy to do is as you're running down the field, you read the guy's upfield shoulder. All right, so I'm going to play the ball, but I got to watch this guy. And if his upfield shoulder goes like this, I got to play back through the guy, through the receiver to play it almost like he's running a hook route, because that's what it becomes. Okay. All right, a fade, and it's a stop on the sidelines. So, and I think that when the ball's thrown poorly, like we've had several of these called on us this year, they say the defender is impeding the guy from getting to the ball. And my question is the defender has won the position, the ball is thrown poorly, why reward them for that? What am I supposed to do as a defensive back? Get out of the guy's way? All right, so you can go catch the ball. So I think that has created, and you know, this happens a lot. And people say, why isn't he playing the ball? Well, he is playing the ball because the ball's thrown to the guy's back shoulder. And they do the same thing on the chop route. The chop route is when a slot guy runs a slot fade. All right, now you got a slot fade. So now you got horizontal position to the sidelines. So now you got to look through the guy to play the ball. Because if you look inside, the quarterback's going to throw it outside where he's got grass, and you're never going to be able to play it. So you got to be in vertical and horizontal position to be able to play the ball. Now you play the ball through the guy that called pass interference on you. We've had a couple of those this year too. But I think the tendency is when guys do that is they put their hands on the guy. And I think that's what gets them in trouble, and that's what we try to coach our guys not to do. So I do think you're right. There is a lot of pass interference being called, but I think this scenario of how people throw back shoulder balls has created a lot of that. And I'm not saying it's not a good thing to do. We do it too, but that's what's created a lot of it.
Coach, let's go back to the phones. Greg is out in San Diego. Hello, Greg.
Hello, thanks for taking my call, Coach.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
My question, good, I'm good. Thank you, sir. My question stems from, it's about the process. From last year's SEC championship game to the national championship game, all the way up to just a comment a second ago about the cheetah process getting, names getting out. Have you met with Dr. Elko or Dr. Rosen in the offseason of this year about what seems to be this incredible external pressure or media coverage that could affect you, the staff, or the team? I didn't know if the process is always changing, and could you share anything with us if possible? If not, just want to know how that is.
Yeah, I think, I think that the media, I think the social media, I think a lot of young people and a lot of players that play college football are really, really impacted by what people say in the media and what their opinions are. I even think sometimes players' parents, are affected by what gets said by people. Fans will be fans, but what I try to get our players, and I think what it sort of stimulates with the player is they want to prove the person wrong. All right, they take this external information, which they shouldn't even be messing with, because who knows whose opinion they're being affected by, and now they want to go prove that these people are wrong. I think a lot of players, young players especially, that come to Alabama and on our team right now, that they want to prove that they can play. They want to prove that they're better than somebody else. They want to prove something. But you really, in sports, you don't really prove anything. You just do what you do and you get discovered. Somebody recognizes, wow, this guy's a really good player. We need to get him on the lineup. It doesn't go the other way. You don't have to prove that you can hit to play in the major leagues. You go hit and they say, oh, we'll put this guy in the major leagues. I mean, that's how it works. All right, but I think so many of these kids, and if you can stay focused on the process, which is what you control, and how you go about what you control, all right, is do what you do, focus on what you have to do to execute that particular play, and don't create a bunch of anxiety for yourself, because you're trying to prove to somebody that you can do something. I have players tell me all the time. And, I think this affects players, and I think sometimes you can see it in the way guys play, that they're actually affected by the anxiety which they've created because they're trying to prove something rather than just going out, being who they are, play, do what they're supposed to do, and that would create value for them, and they would play well, and they would really have more fun playing because they wouldn't be affected by all this anxiety, which is not really good for performance. High achievement motivation and low anxiety is what's good for performance. And I do think that the internet, I do think social media, I do think the media all affects players. It affects them all. And it makes it harder for them to stay focused on the process of doing the things that they can do, that they can control to play well.
And if you don't get affected by that, you're just a different breed. That's just the way to put it. As a media member, I'll tell you, the hardest questions for us to ask are the ones that everybody wants to know. I've been doing this long enough to not ask you if Bryce Young's playing, because why in the world would you tell anybody that? Why would you say, yeah, he's doing it, okay, that gives Hypo the game plan for everything he wants. I want to know, what is your process going to be on Saturday to see if Bryce Young's good enough to play?
Well, Bryce has practiced some this week, and I think it comes down to, does he feel and do we feel that he can throw the ball effectively enough? And he's not going to hurt himself by doing it. I just don't know how much it will hurt him if he does it. Mm-hmm. He's done it on a limited basis, but, so that's the question. And nobody's going to know that until Saturday comes. All right, so he won't know it, I won't know it, nobody will know it. And I know he wants to play, and I know he thinks he can play. And we'll see. We'll see. So does that answer your question?
Good answer.
Good enough, I guess.
Good answer. Works for me. This segment of the Nick Saban Show brought to you by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar, and refreshingly delicious. Is Coca-Cola Zero Sugar the best Coke ever? Find out for yourself. We're coming back with more in a moment on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Lear.
Bama fans on their feet making all the noise they can with a lot of nausea running through the place as well. Final play of the game, 3 seconds left. Aggies at the Alabama 2. 4-point Bama lead. We're trying to keep it that way. King gets the snap. Time. Throws. It is incomplete. Zeros on the clock. Ball game. No flags. Alabama wins. Let's get out of here. They don't ask you how. They simply ask you how many. And this is a big one for the Crimson Tide as Alabama holds on. The fighting Texas Aggies, 24-20 is your final.
Was indeed on a great night in Tuscaloosa, thanks to the great finish for the Crimson Tide in that one. We're back on the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance for auto, home, and life insurance. Call Alpha. Coach, we got one more question from the audience here.
Coach, Stevie Hoven, talking about the atmosphere in Knoxville and all the external factors that will affect the players, what can we as fans do to help make a difference?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to show our appreciation for what a great stadium we had last Saturday. I think it had a huge effect on the game. There was great energy and enthusiasm in the stadium. It really helped us, overcome a lot of adversity in the game and created some for them, which is really appreciated. I think that, the big thing, one of the things that always makes me feel great is when we pull up to the stadium, when we're playing on the road, and we have a whole bunch of fans that are right there where we get off the bus. It makes you feel like you're not alone. All right, and I think that's one of the things that always makes me personally feel like, okay, we got this. We got people here and all that. But I think that the challenge for you is, and if you're a great competitor, you love the challenge. When you have these external factors, you don't focus on them. You don't acknowledge, that the noise is going to affect you. You don't acknowledge the fans. You don't, you just don't do anything to show them that they're having any impact on the game. And I think when you make them relevant, all right, because you start jumping off sides or, you start talking to a heckler in the stands or whatever it is, then you make the fans relevant, and they know that. So, but if you can stay focused on doing your job, all right, and don't worry about all those external factors, because really what affects the fans more than anything else is if you play good and beat the other team, they're not a factor in the game. All right, so that's what we try to get our players to understand. Just don't do anything that make the fans relevant, all right, by how you play and how you stay focused on what's on the field. The field is going to be 53 yards wide and 100 yards deep wherever we go. So if we can just stay focused on that part of it, I think we'll have the best chance to be successful.
Will Anderson said, make the fans want to leave. I love that line the other week.
Coach, it is time for your final word, and the final word from Coach Saban is presented by Mercedes-Benz.
Well, we understand how much this game means to a lot of people in the state of Alabama. This is the, 15th, 16th time that we've had this game. We've had some great games with them. We have a lot of respect for this team that they have this year, and this is going to be a great challenge for our team. And our players have worked hard this week. We've had a good week. They've got a lot of energy and enthusiasm. I think we've got a good plan, and everybody's ready to go execute it against a good team. And I think I've said this before, when you're a great competitor, you love games like this. You like to play in games like this. And our ability to stay focused and control what we can control is going to be a real key to this. And any fans that we have there, make yourself known, man. It always makes us appreciate that you're there. So roll Tide.
Coach, we appreciate you. Roll Tide, and we will see you in Knoxville.
All right, thank you.
Head coach Nick Saban with us, and Hey Coach, the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to say one more thing before I leave out of here. We've got a lot of friends in South Florida where we have a home, and there's a lot of people hurting down there. And anything that anybody could do to help whatever group that you could help would certainly be appreciated. I mean, there's some devastating damage and a lot of people out of homes. And I know once this gets out of the news, it's kind of, out of sight, out of mind. But it's not for those folks. And I just hope there's a lot of folks out there that can have enough gratitude for what those people are going through that they can help them in some kind of way. So thanks.
Thank you, Coach.
All
Appreciate
right.
it so much.